Evening, everyone. It's April 16th, 2020, 5 o'clock, just a little after 5. And we're here for another meeting, regularly scheduled of the school board. We're operating again tonight under the emergency meeting rule, RSA 91-A:23B, and pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, Section 8, and Emergency Order Number 12, Section 3. At the outset, just everybody who's on here, can you please announce yourself? Why don't we have the board members go first in alphabetical order? And Mike Kennison. And I have nobody in the room with me. Elizabeth, is that you?
Wait a minute, I'm coming.
Still okay there. Kim Shelton is here, Mike. No one's in the room with me.
Gary Swanson's here. No one's in the room.
Amy Tilton and I'm alone.
Susan Gibbons and I'm alone.
Why don't we go, Jennifer?
Hello, Jennifer DeStefano, Assistant Principal at Junior Senior High School. I'm here by myself.
Okay, Sarah?
Sarah Denham, Assistant Principal of Newmarket Junior Senior High School, and I will be in a room alone shortly.
Erica?
Elizabeth McKinney, I'm alone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got it. So, Deb, did I get you yet?
No, Debbie Raffo, acting principal at the elementary school.
Dave Jack?
Dave Jack, interim business administrator, and I'm alone.
Okay. Did I leave anyone out?
Erica McNeil, and I am alone.
Okay. I think that's everyone.
Oh, you forgot me, Mike T.
You were the first one to join, too.
I know. Sean Pine, interim principal at Newmarket High School.
Thank you, Sean.
And Christina Cochran, Assistant Principal at the elementary school.
Okay. Any others? Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. I'm going to waive tonight the Pledge of Allegiance. And we'll enter first with any public comments. Were there any submitted, Susan?
There were two, and so I'm just going to read them. So one was submitted by George Hilton, and I'll just read what he wrote. Hi all, I have a few question scenarios about COVID-19 remote learning alternative grading system recommendations referenced in tonight's agenda under discussion items that I was hoping you could answer in tonight's meeting. 1, if a student had a failing grade at the end of quarter 3, but did the work they were asked to in quarter 4 successfully, would the student be given a fail based on the grade at the end of quarter 3, or would the quarter 4 work completed be weighted in the calculation, the student's final pass-fail grade? So that was question 1. And we can answer these under that topic discussion shortly. 2, how will pass-fail grades affect those who aspire to make the highest honors and honor roll, and will Newmarket be able to recognize the top 10 seniors as they have in the past? These students have worked hard over the past 4 years to achieve this goal, and it would be a shame if they were not recognized for this achievement. 3, do the teachers have a plan in place as to how these pass-fail grades will be calculated yet? What criteria will be used? Will the criteria be the same across the board for all classes? And will the details behind this new grading system be available to parents? I hope all is well. Thank you, Mary Jane Hilton. And the second one was submitted by, let's see,
Palishano.
Thank you. Can you tell me how we have discussion for school board meetings since it's not in person anymore. Wanted to talk about the pass-fail grading system they will be discussing and find out how that will affect my juniors' grades for college next year. So these were sent in to Patty Banfield, my new executive assistant, and she responded, and she also passed these on to the high school administrative team. So they're aware of these and are prepared to respond to them when we get to that item on the agenda. But other than those two, we did not receive any calls or emails about tonight's agenda.
Susan, I had one email received where somebody wanted me to read it, so I'll go ahead and do that right now. It's from Uta Honer, and it says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Kennison. I hope this email finds you well amid the corona crisis. I would like to express my concern about changing the grading for the semester to a pass-fail system. While in my opinion, a pass-fail system might be acceptable for the elementary and junior high school level, there should be a different approach for the high school. For a lot of the students, a major motivator to submit assignments on time, study for tests, quizzes, and assessments, and to put in their best effort are grades. In addition to lack of motivation, all the effort the students have shown during this semester, and especially over the last weeks of remote learning, would not have paid off, as now a C- is as valuable as an A+. For all the extra work that teachers have accomplished and will have to put in for the last weeks in order to make remote learning possible, it would be unfair to them if the students lacked motivation and failed to complete assignments just because it would not change their grades anyhow. Thank you for taking time to consider. Best regards, Uta Honer." Thank you for those thoughts and comments.
Hi, Mike. There was one from Rachel Willerer. She addressed it to Susan and the whole board. Did you get that?
I got it. She didn't ask to read it, but we can.
Yeah, it should. I think we should read it.
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Okay. Dear Susan, Mike, Elizabeth, Kim, Gary, and Amy, I see on the agenda for tonight's meeting the issue of using a pass-fail system for the fourth quarter. I'm not sure it's possible, but our preference is that this be optional for parents and students to make this decision together. For our children, this would be a terrible letdown after the tremendous time and effort they have put in since remote learning began. Their grades have never been better, and we have been extremely proud of the independence and initiative they have taken since day one. I also have good friends whose high school's kids are really struggling with remote learning, who otherwise are good students. I would hate for them to be stuck with the grades they receive while learning in a manner that does not work for them. Thank you for listening, and we will be watching the meeting tonight. Rachel Willerer. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, that's I think all we had for the public comment section. I don't see anybody lined up online here either. So we'll move on to the reports. There's not going to be a student representative report tonight because there's really no calendar of student events, obviously. As far as school committee reports go, I'll start off quickly with the building committee. Really good news in light of everything else. I think people like to hear a little good news is that the building renovation at the junior senior high school is pretty much done. People will notice if they've driven by that the construction trailers are now gone. There's a lot less construction vehicles there. Over the next weeks, they'll be just doing walkthroughs and working on punch list items, but the spaces are pretty much complete. There's a little bit of work to go in the home ec section. We are still, well, one more point. We have right now a bid out for the sign that's going to go out in front of the junior senior high school, the electronic sign, which we anticipate will probably be installed in the May-June timeframe. That will kind of complete everything. I really wish we could get folks in there. I know Sean Pine's with us tonight. He's taken photographs. I think those will be shared with the public. But the spaces I hear are really amazing, especially the ones in the front with the windows. They brought all the light back. They've restructured the ceilings in those rooms. So we can't wait to get back in those spaces and, for the students to see them and staff and all that. And at an appropriate time, we'll of course have opportunity for the public to go in, and of course we have to wait and see when that will be. But the other important aspect to all this is we're still under budget, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any new major financial expenditures that will affect that. So that's a good thing. And I just again, at an appropriate time, we'll have a dedication ceremony when people can get in, and recognizing all the community members, the school community members who have worked over these past years to make that project a success. That's all I had for the building committee. Are there reports from other committees? None from communication or entry. Well, not surprising, because we've been focusing on remote learning. And so why don't we get Dave Jack is with us again tonight. He's going to give us our monthly update on finances. Take it away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think in your package you have the March 31st, 2020 financial report. It's in the same format as we had previously, with the revenues listed at the top. Revenues are on track. Nothing has changed. And as far as the expenditures below, we've just advanced really another month. The balance at the bottom is 1.39 million as far as what's has not been encumbered. And I want to qualify this report by saying we'll be able to project out further once we have determined if we are going to go to the remainder of the school year with remote learning. That's going to be pretty critical because it drives a lot of the expenditures that you would make going forward in the next several months. So I think this week is the week we learn where we are going, and when we do this report next month, then we'll have a better determination as to what we can begin to look at as balances as we go forward in the end of the year. It's not normal because we see a lot of different things happening in our food service in particular, which is not on here, but in your food service account, we continue to have many of the same expenses, though the revenue stream will not be the same coming forward in the next few months. Simply the daily sales aren't there, yet we continue to offer the food and nutrition, and consequently we'll have to address that out of whatever's left at the end of the year. So those decisions we'll make in the next couple to 3 months going forward. I anticipate there will be a balance left. To go along with this report, we've also reported to the state in a couple of different instances where they would like to know what expenditures we have as a result of the COVID-19 virus and the pandemic. We've reported those. There is some funding that I do believe will be available. We won't know the exact amount until everybody puts their expenditures in. I don't think it will cover all of your expenditures, but certainly will help a great deal as we go forward. And there may be more on the horizon, but we don't know that yet. So if you have any questions on any of the particular line items, I think they're pretty much under the function codes as we look at the expenditures. Simply in most of these cases, the encumbrance would have lessened and the expenditures would have gone out as we've done payroll and so forth going through. We don't have a tremendous amount of any type of new spending in terms of other than salary and benefits. That really is where it is at. The regular ed transportation, we agreed with the transportation that we would help to keep those particular entities intact. And at the same time, they looked at giving us a reduction on the monthly charges coming forward from March 23rd. Questions?
I think Susan will get to it, but I think the governor told us today that we're going to be remote learning for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few announcements, but we'll let Dave finish, and then I'll loop back and share some more information.
Any questions from any of the board members?
I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that update, Dave. Susan, you want to? I noticed actually, Dave is going to talk about a lawn mowing bid. We might want to just do that so he can go enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Under your policy, under your school board policy, and I attached that into the bidding under DJE, any contracts over $10,000, we have to go out for a bid. And I have to bring back the recommendation to the board for their approval to go forward. We did put the landscaping services RFP out. It's in your packet. We would recommend East Coast Outdoors. They had at this point in time, they had the least expensive bid at $12,600. And I would recommend that you approve this going into FY21. This bid will start on July the 1st.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Can I seek a motion for approval of Mr. Jack's recommendation for East Coast Outdoors for its $12,600? It's in our packet.
I'll make
So
a motion.
Just announce your name when you make a motion in a second, please, so we have it for the record.
Elizabeth McKinney. I made the motion.
Gary Swanson will second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? None? Okay. All those in favor, let's do this by a roll call vote. Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kimberly Shelton, yes.
Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Dave, thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Okay. So next, Susan, why don't you give your comments? I know you had some in addition to what's listed here.
Yes, thank you. I had three things I wanted to provide updates to the board tonight. And the first one is that the governor did announce today that we would be extending the emergency order through the end of the year. So that means that we will remain in our remote learning and remote services model until, June 10th. So with that, we prepared for that. So that's not going to require a big pivot for us. But I will be letting families know tonight, assuming I get out of the meeting early enough to write, a letter to our community. They'll find that out a little bit later. But I wanted to announce that tonight. And then along with that, the NHIAA Council made a decision to cancel the 2020 sports season and championships for this year based on this news from the governor. They like all of us, want to focus, on what's most important, which is protecting people and not contributing to the numbers who will fall victim to this disease. So it doesn't make any sense to continue with the sports season if we're going to continue with remote learning and social distancing protocols. So I wanted to make you aware of that. What the governor said was he was basing his decision on the fact that, folks with asymptomatic are infected but are asymptomatic, will be transmitting the virus to people, and it may not be obvious that somebody's carrying. And to have people return to school, even if the children aren't presenting as being ill, if they transmit it to another child and then they go home and we start infecting others in our community, that it just was not worth taking those chances. Furthermore, if you've been watching on the national level, all of the experts are saying that unless and until we have proper testing protocols in place, that we should remain in this new normal because there's no way to be able to guarantee safety or track the pandemic. And so right now, we're not in a place where there's adequate testing available nationwide. There certainly isn't adequate testing available here in New Hampshire. And until we catch up and have those test kits available, then we will remain in this social distancing protocol. So I think that's important. He also mentioned that he feels that we have plateaued, but plateaued doesn't mean it's going down. He said we're having the same number of, approximately the same number of folks passing from this disease and the same number of new cases of COVID-19 being identified every day. So it's not going down, but he felt that it had plateaued here. So based on that, he said to all of us today that he felt that we would continue on with these protocols over the course of the summer. So what that means is that our summer school programs would be done in a remote learning fashion. He also said that when they do begin to consider rolling back some of these restrictions, that it would be done in kind of a flexible way, though he did not provide us with any specifics about how that would be, but he did say that we would have to have a graduated rollback, but that we would need to have certain things in place before we could even consider doing that. So that's what he said in a nutshell. And we have a call with the commissioner tomorrow to talk more in depth about the implications this has for us from now until September. So I wanted to give you that update because that was hot off the press. We had an emergency phone call at 1 o'clock today. And so therefore that wasn't on the agenda. Also, I just wanted to give a couple of these updates before we get into, I think the big topic tonight, which is alternative grading systems. I wanted to speak just for a moment about the principal search because I wanted to make sure, that folks in our viewing audience are aware that we had both candidates in a public forum that was recorded today, in which they gave some opening remarks about their interest in the position, their qualifications, and then they were asked the same questions for which they responded, and then gave a closing statement. Those can be viewed. They're up on channel 13 now. And this evening I will be sending out a link so that parents can provide feedback on the two candidates so that we can consider that for, when we get to the final interview phase next week. So I just wanted to mention that. There's been an awful lot of time that's transpired since this process began. We advertised back in February, and that was on the 10th. And at that time, I had sent out an invitation to all stakeholder groups, asking them if they would be interested in serving on the screening committee. We had a pretty significant interest in participating, and unfortunately weren't able to welcome everyone onto the committee, but we did have a great group of people that were involved in the screening process. So we had 4 teachers, we had a special educator, we had a paraprofessional, we had 3 parents, a community member who also happened to be had a 33-year career as a high school principal, and we had a student that was on that. Erica McNeil, who is our Director of Student Services, chaired the screening committee, but the process has been facilitated by NESDEC. And so the screening committee was provided with training, and they also received a candidate profile. And the profile was built out of a lot of input from the public. And so we had sent out a survey so that anybody at all in the community, both internally, students and staff, as well as parents and community members, could answer 2 questions for us. The first was, what are the qualities, characteristics, skills, knowledge, and experience you desire in the new high school principal? And then the second question was, what do you see as the pressing tasks and challenges ahead for him or her during the first 6 months to a year? And so based on that and focus groups that took place on March 6th and 7th, NESDEC took all of this data and they created a profile based on what we told them. And I just wanted to mention that, and all this information, by the way, is on our website, including the profile. But there was 2 dominant themes that came across out of all of this data mining. And the first was that we wanted to ensure that we wanted to ensure that we would have a high-performing junior senior high school. And so therefore we wanted a principal who had high school experience as a principal, who had teaching experience at the high school level in particular, who would have a pulse on the school, could understand and had the skill to implement and communicate a quality core academic program. And it goes on to detail what the criteria was that the screening committee would use. The second theme was that we wanted to ensure a safe and positive school culture and climate. And again, they identified specifically what they meant, what we meant when we they created that theme out of the feedback that we had provided. So I welcome anyone to look at that. And then the last page of the profile provides, what we see are the challenges in the first year. It includes things like lead the NEASC self-study process to ensure that we open the school with all parts in place, including the master scheduling, all the hiring is complete, the information is provided out to staff in the community in a timely fashion. And so it gives a whole list of these types of things. And I just call this out because it's been quite an extensive process of gathering information along the way. The committee took that information and they did a wonderful job screening candidates. I will say I have not been involved in the process myself up until this point, other than providing my own input into the profile, just as every other stakeholder group has. I know that having chaired processes like this and having gone through hiring processes for the last 30 years, that if you have a rigorous process, that in the end, you will wind up with the best candidate suited for the needs of the school at the time that you're doing the hiring. And I just wanted to take a moment tonight to really thank all those that have participated in this process. We're coming to the end of the process now. This week, there were meet and greets and feedback provided by our staff at the junior senior high school. Erica McNeil has done an amazing job coordinating all of that. Then we had today the parent and community portion, and tomorrow we'll be with students. And we're going to take all of this data, and the leadership team is meeting on Monday to review all of this, and then we will develop our final question series that we will be asking the candidates. Our final interviews will be on Tuesday, and then as a leadership team, there are certain targeted questions that we would like to ask each of the candidates based on our understanding of where we are and what our needs are at this moment in time. So I just wanted to take a minute again to thank everyone for all of the efforts put forward to make this a rigorous process, and to let you know that we're coming close to the end, and please engage with us one more time by reviewing those forums that took place today, and later on when I send you the feedback forms, to please do fill those out. They really are an important part of the process, and we are going to read each and every one of them. So I just wanted to give you an update on that, Mike. And then the third thing, earlier this week, I and Chris Eason, who is our junior senior high school guidance counselor, participated in a webinar. I guess it was less a webinar and more of a panel. The topic was, what is the impact of COVID-19 on college admissions? And I just wanted to take a moment because it's really, I think, germane to our alternative grading topic tonight. So I just wanted to take a minute to share with you some of the information that we received from that session that we participated in. So the first part, and maybe it's not as widely known as that I realized, but the SATs for the spring have been canceled. This was announced a number of weeks ago by the College Board. And so usually students at the high school level will take the SATs more than once. Oftentimes they'll take it 2 and sometimes 3 times. The first one being a practice to get familiar with the kinds of questions, so that ultimately when they're taking that final test, they're in the best position to get the high score. And so by canceling the SATs in the spring, I'm sure that it has created a little anxiety perhaps in some parents and students, because they will not have the benefit of taking the SAT multiple times before the fall. And the fall is usually when you're taking your final SAT and you're, submitting those to colleges with your application. So I thought since certainly GPA at the high school level is related to college applications, and your SAT test is, for some college applications, I just thought I would take a moment to share with you what we took away from that. But before I do that, I'll say that teaching, I've been involved in higher ed for quite some time, and there has been ongoing conversation over the course of the last 10 to 15 years about the validity of using standardized tests as a measure of student potential, and where access and equitability aren't always the same, and we always ask ourselves, what are we trying to measure? What does this tell us about the profile of the student? And so through these conversations, many colleges and universities across the country and throughout the world have begun to transition to a more holistic way of reviewing applicants. Even Penn, when I applied, and this is Ivy League, so even there, it was a portfolio process that we submitted. Certainly we had essays that we wrote about certain topics and philosophies of education and all of that, but we submitted a portfolio of our work, and so that more and more today we're looking at a whole range of different aspects of a student's profile when considering them for admissions. So I wanted to mention that because it does play into this very much, and I think that one of the positive outcomes of this pandemic could very well mean that we move further away from standardized tests, which really don't measure really in any significant way college readiness or the intellectual capacity of students. So one of I guess the biggest thing that they wanted to drive home and remind us is that K-12 education aren't the only ones that are experiencing upheaval, that higher ed is as well. And as they look to admissions next year and the implications, they're reevaluating criteria and policies. They're not going to take the student population that are sophomores and juniors and even our seniors and apply the same metrics that they've used in the past, because the meaning of the SAT will be different for these juniors that will not have the benefit of taking it multiple times. So, they said, emphatically that, students and parents should not be overly concerned that there's going to be some kind of a negative impact on students when they're applying to schools next year. And I just felt that it was really important to talk about this tonight, because we did get into the conversation about the implications of pass-fail on transcripts and the GPAs and how that will impact admissions moving forward. But also that the SAT part is something that they will take into consideration the current context. So there was a couple of things that they had mentioned when it comes to the pass-fail and the SAT, that what they're going to be asking for is that guidance counselors, when they're filling out the Common App, will be asked to provide a narrative that explains what happened at the local level in response to the pandemic, and then how students reacted or adjusted to the situation. That they're talking about maybe adding another section and or just asking guidance counselors to include that, so that they will have an understanding of if you went pass-fail, what the circumstances were and why, and then how the students responded to that. And another piece of it is that the colleges are going to look again at the strength of the curriculum and the types of courses taken over the course of a student's entire high school experience. So when you apply, typically you especially in the bigger schools, would be applying to a college based on your interests for the future. So if a college has a school of education or a school of engineering or a school of business, that usually when you're applying to the school, you're applying to a particular school within that university. And so as a person that does review these kinds of applications, what you're looking for is the relationship between the courses taken and where they're looking to matriculate, what kind of a program they're trying to matriculate into. And so oftentimes I'll be asked, is it important, if I'm going to go into XYZ career to take, every AP course known to man. And really AP courses are great. They certainly will show a certain level of coursework that a student's taken, but it's not always the be all and end all. Neither is SAT scores. So what you would look at is, if you're going into a school of engineering, yeah, you would want to be taking AP math and science courses. But is it mission critical for you if you're going into a STEM career to take all of the humanities AP courses? Not necessarily. And so, I think what's happened over the course of time is that, students have put tremendous pressure on themselves, to try to create this resume that shows that they've taken, very high level, courses throughout in every single area. And I just want to reassure everyone that, yeah, it's important that you take rigorous courses. There's no question about that. But it isn't that you have to take every single course to be at the AP level. What's important is that you show a broad base of experience in a variety of different areas. So coursework is important. The types of courses you've taken is important. It's also what's important is what you've done outside of that. And so what kind of co-curricular things have you been involved in? What are you doing outside of school? What kind of leadership activities have you been involved in? You know, what the quality of the essay that you write can be important. The letters of recommendation that are coming from your teachers and your counselors can also be important. So it's more of a holistic approach. And so what this is going to force is colleges and universities to take one more big giant step towards this idea of holistic looks at applicants moving forward. So I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is a good thing. You know, when you're putting a cohort of students together at the college level, you're looking for folks that can bring something more to the university or the college than the person that's applying next to them. And you know, when you go through a challenging time like this, you know, you build character, grit, you know, all of those social emotional skills that we talk about in education today, and psychology and, you know, child development. You know, kids today need to develop these skills. And so looking at how students respond and react to that, and then being able to speak to that in their resume and their college application is going to be something that will give kids, you know, an awful lot to talk about. What was this experience like? And, you know, when it got really challenging, you know, what kinds of things did you learn out of that? I know that, you know, when I'm looking at the profile of a student and I'm having to write a report to the college, you know, about, you know, my perceptions, you know, I look at kids that have maybe fallen and then had to get back up because that happens to us in life over and over again. And it's not that we have a misstep in life, it's how we react and respond to that mishap. And so I think that what we're going to find is that this opens up more opportunities for our kids moving forward. It doesn't decrease them. So that was basically their message, and some editorializing from me based on my own experience with the process. And I just thought that it was really important to share that, you know, GPA, you know, in many ways for those colleges that aren't looking solely at GPA and SATs, you know, what they had talked about is looking from a predictive standpoint. So if it's pass fail in the fourth quarter, and the student has had, you know, a great broad base of experiences, courses, co-curriculars, all of that up till the point in time when this pandemic hit, then that's a predictor of how they would do under normal circumstances moving forward. You also have for sophomores and juniors the senior year, and so how does this play out over the course of the long run? So they're going to look at applications in the context of the current situation, not based on what the normal was 6 months ago. So with all of that in mind, I know that Chris Bisson had sent out a piece yesterday that gave some information about seniors. There's more information that's available to parents of seniors. If you have any concerns or questions about financial aid or any of that, please do reach out to the high school administration or the counselors. They'll be more than happy to provide you with some resources to help navigate now and give you some suggestions and strategies if you have any questions. So thank you for indulging me for the last 5 or 6 minutes. I thought it was important to the conversation that we're about to have. And if there's no questions about any of those 3 items, I'm happy to roll into our alternative grading system recommendation.
Susan, this is Amy. I have a question. In regards to the end of the year, you had mentioned in a prior meeting that we would have 990 hours of school time, and that would be sooner than June 10th. So I was just wondering, why do we have to end on June 10th rather than sooner than that? A lot of parents were asking me that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so when you design your school calendar, then you establish a certain pace of content and skill development that will take place over the course of that time span. And so our courses at the secondary level, at the elementary school as well, are designed to be able to progress students over the course of X number of days to get them to where we need them to be. And so 990 is a minimum. And some schools design their days and their school year to be accomplished in a shorter period of time than we. But our school is designed around a 180-day school year for students and 186-day school year for faculty. And so when we were looking at this, there was a balance between ending the year early, but still being able to get kids to a certain point of proficiency before the school year ended. So it's a combination of the two. We didn't feel that we could do it any sooner. We couldn't close school any sooner and still get to a certain level of proficiency with the progression of the kids with the competencies that we're hoping to get to by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, I had a question or a couple questions. One, you mentioned that the NHIAA is canceling the 2020 season. Is that just the spring season, or is that the entire spring and fall?
Yeah, that's the 2020 spring season.
Oh, spring. Okay. Yeah. And then I think this kind of ties into your comments to Amy. At some point, is there a plan on some sort of creating an evaluation system to try to identify where students maybe have lacked some of the normal educational opportunities that we would get in school, and to try to maybe level kids back out prior to next year? You had mentioned summer school would probably be remote, so that doesn't seem like the right time to do it, but is that something you were looking towards creating at some point?
Yeah, so when we introduced our long-term remote learning plan to faculty, included in that, as you all know, is 1 day of planning. And what we had asked is that teachers get together and identify power standards and competencies that we could reasonably commit to getting students to a level of proficiency by the end of the year. So the idea, and I've said it multiple times, is that quality is more important than quantity. And what's important is that we focus our attention on essential skills and knowledge, and that we strategically do this so that we know where we are going to have to backfill student skill development when we get out of this situation. So the teachers have been working over the last 3 weeks with the building level administrative team to identify what those are, so that we can be very clear with students about what the expectations are from now until the end of the year. There's no way in this model to be able to cover everything that you could if you had the kids together, you know, sitting in front of and working with, you know, highly experienced teachers. It's just not possible. And so what's important is that we focus in on, you know, reasonable expectations from now until the end of the year, given the circumstances we're in. So we've already begun that conversation. It's been taking place the last couple of weeks. And our goal is that before we leave for this little April break next week, that we will have those finalized and communicated to students. So then at the end of the year, when we students leave us and we have 6 days, that's what we're going to take up. Here's where the knowledge gaps are, the skill gaps are. And so how are we going to address this when kids come back? And so we've started to talk about a few different ideas, but we haven't, we've been waiting for the governor to make his decision about what we're going to do for the rest of this year before we went too deep into that conversation. Does that answer your question, Gary?
Yeah, I think it does. I think once you've had your meetings at the end of the year, you probably can fill the board back in on any deficits you guys see and what the plan is to kind of bring everything back up to level. So I would say it does.
Yeah. One more thing I will say, we were talking today in our leadership meeting, reviewing, who do we have students, a population of students that are struggling. And as we went through and we were looking, we have about 6 to 7 students per grade that are not engaging at the level that we would hope. But as we started talking about it more, it happens to be the same population of students that were not engaged at the level we would hope for when we were in school. So one of the takeaways we had from our conversation earlier today was that we're not seeing, and it's not that nobody's struggling or having difficulties, it's that the kids that are not engaged now are the same population of kids that weren't engaged before. Doesn't mean that we're not trying. It means we keep reaching out and we keep trying to connect with them and find ways to engage them in learning. But we're not losing students that were succeeding previously or were engaged previously. Some people are reacting very favorably to remote learning. They were kids that were engaged before, and some kids that were engaged before are struggling in this remote learning environment. And so, we're providing them with the support to help them navigate, and get through this year. We have that same situation with our staff, people, this is hard. This is really hard. It's hard to figure out, how we're going to keep kids who are separated from themselves when what we want to do is be having them together and collaborating and, doing all kinds of face-to-face activities. All those strategies, kind of are much more challenging and some impossible to do in a remote setting. So, we're all having our moments. I think that would be normal in this situation. And for that reason, what's important is that we find ways to come together and support one another. Learning should be fun. Kids should enjoy learning. There's a lot of ways that we can reinforce some of the same concepts without having to make it as maybe onerous as some are feeling it is right now. Like I said, others are enjoying it and having a good experience, but there's a whole range of experiences that kids are having, that staff are having, and we just have to be cognizant that this environment here is not ideal for anyone, and so therefore we just have to say it's okay. It's okay. What we do in education, Gary, is we close gaps. That's what we do. So I'm confident that the educators here are perfectly capable of evaluating where kids are at, and we will come up with plans that will help them to close the gaps that are created, and we'll do it in the most efficient, effective way possible based on whatever the circumstances are in front of us.
Great, thank you. Mike, I did have one more item, but I don't want to be, if another board member wants to speak, I don't want to keep talking.
Mike, your mute is on.
Yeah, sorry, Gary. Yeah, Gary, why don't you just go ahead? We'll have time to get everybody's thoughts in.
Yeah, I was just, and this can be perhaps a motion, or we can just discuss it. it's great to hear that the principal search is wrapping up. I know it's been a topic of a lot of people's thoughts around town, and it occurs to me that I think it might, or I believe it makes sense that the school board would conduct interviews, final interviews with the candidates, and then we could deliberate with Susan, obviously taking her recommendation as the ultimate nomination. But I think it might be a great opportunity for the board to meet the candidates and the candidates to maybe meet the board.
I would say that it's not our place. It's not our hire. And one of the things that we have worked on is try to keep this as Susan's hire. Community members are involved, administration's involved. You can be involved by sending in questions. I watched both candidates this morning. I'll watch them tomorrow as well. But I think as board members, we should not be involved in this. We'll meet them. We'll meet the candidate when they get hired and they come to our board meeting.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Ultimately, the board do the hiring. The superintendent, I mean, it's clear in state law, the superintendent does the nomination, the board does the electing or the hiring. I don't think it makes sense for us to meet people who are running, people who are being nominated for most positions, but I think principal and above, I think it does. I don't know if any other board members have thoughts on that, or.
Yeah, this is Mike Kennison. My thoughts are, as a board member and have been a board member for 5 years on this board and other boards, it's a fine line. Yes, we receive nominations for all positions, right? But as a role as a sort of an executive board, our one and only hire really is the superintendent. What I need to satisfy myself with as a board member in that role is to make sure that the process at which the nominations were arrived at was a fulsome process, was a reasonable process. And as Dr. Gibbons explained earlier, and I think this one clearly was, it had folks on the selection committee, on the screening committee that are far more knowledgeable, about these matters than certainly I am. That they asked the questions and got their answers for those. And I wouldn't try to supplant my decision on an interview for theirs in terms of coming up with a nomination. But to be fair, Gary, to your point, there are districts that do it different ways, and you only have to go online to see that. And so there are certainly different points of view on. Just from a systemic point of view, I think that it's best that we sort of not weigh in on arriving at the nominations, but we certainly should be asking questions to make sure that the process that got to those nominations was the right process. So those are just my feelings on it.
I don't want to jump in if anyone else is gonna.
I tend to look at it both ways, but this is Amy, sorry. I wouldn't mind meeting them beforehand, as Gary had suggested. And like Mike said, that different boards do different things. Why is it that we do it this way and not the other way? I mean, things can change. I don't know if it's policy, but I think Gary has a good point. And so that's how I feel about it.
This is Kim Shelton. I guess my thought is that ultimately, it's a different part of the process, but the final decision of accepting the nomination is ultimately ours. So I think that what we might need to do is look at the length and the robustness of the process that we've gone through for this one or any of the ones that we've done, and then determine through questions with Susan and feedback from the admin team the validity of that nomination before we accept it. It gets dicey when we insert ourselves prior to that time.
Yeah, and I certainly am not recommending in any way that we supplant the process or the feedback. I just think it would be great for us to meet the candidates and an opportunity for the candidates to meet us and maybe ask us some questions. There has been a lot of contention and a lot of interest from last fall about this position. So I think maybe it's fair to them to give them an opportunity to feel comfortable with us.
Any other thoughts or comments? Susan, I don't know if you have any.
I've been involved in many principal searches. Only one has a board member been involved in the process, and that process didn't go particularly well, and I'm not referring to here. Typically, the building principal reports to the superintendent, not to the board. The principal, the relationship between the school board and the principal is only through the superintendent. So that's why it's not a situation where a board member would really, the board in and of itself would have a singular kind of access or something to this type of a process in the way you would for a superintendent. You know, certainly final interviews for the superintendent, which is the hire of the board, is done by the board. Usually a screening committee process is involved, similar to the one that we just engaged in with the principal search. But ultimately, in the end, there is really no relationship between the board as a board and the principal.
I would just, I mean, I guess this is Mike Kennison again. I would just echo something I think, Kim, that you were getting at is that, and it goes to Gary, your point too. I mean, I get where you're coming from. Certainly the principal is an important position, and certainly it's been on the front of people's minds recently. But I would argue that every position, any teacher position is important as well. Assistant principal, and on and on and on. I mean, these are all folks who are dealing directly with students on a day-to-day basis. So if we, you know, where do we sort of draw the line if we start getting into the nomination process? Because they're all important. That's it. Are there any other thoughts?
I guess I'd just wrap up by saying, you know, I completely agree with you. And I hesitant to say that we're getting in the nomination process. Ultimately, we do need to vote on the nomination. So I feel like it's important for the board to do as much due diligence as we can possibly do. Teachers are extremely important. Everybody in the building is important, but obviously the principal has a larger role in the building. And I think that's why that may make sense for them. I'm not feeling like there would be a consensus, so I don't think I would obviously pursue this further unless Kim had some additional thoughts.
Nope, I'm good. I mean, you know, I think we're at an exciting time, you know, after watching the videos today, as, you know, wearing my mom hat. I think that I really hope that people beyond the five of us really take the opportunity to look at the videos that were put up today and provide the feedback so that those voices are heard as a part of the selection too. Because I think we all, you know, Gary, as you said, this has been a challenging time in a lot of ways for a lot of people surrounding this particular issue. And I think that that's a way for people to really feel like they've had to been put on the decision without having been on the larger committee.
And I think there's even another session tomorrow, I think, where students are going to be introducing questions as well. And I'm not sure if that one will be televised or not. I think they're going to be issued through NESDEC like they were today. So there may
will be, Michael, I think it will be televised.
Okay, so there will be another opportunity. And just my sort of final thought on this, Gary, I do thank you for bringing it up. It's a good conversation. There isn't any clear answer. So, you know, with humility, you know, that's how I approach it. I mean, I did look around. All sorts of districts do it differently. and there are good points on either side of it. Are there any other thoughts on this matter? Okay. Susan, do you want to begin your discussion or presentation about the proposed grading policy?
Sure, I'll queue it up, and then I'll let the leadership, the building level leadership, talk about the proposals for the different levels. But in many ways, I've kind of framed the conversation that right now we are in one of the most unusual times in our history. Never have we really experienced this in recent times, where we've completely shut down huge parts of our public, and at the same time asked people to continue to go on as if we're still in business in the same way. So remote learning is kind of that way. We're asked to do something that's a little foreign, and parents and not just parents, but people all over our country and the world are experiencing anxiety, fear, and worry, and people are impacted in different ways by this. Some in real personal ways, and others, through people that we know. So we do have people that are experiencing health issues, and when you have somebody in your home or in your personal life that is not well, your focus and attention should be on helping them, first and foremost, providing them with the care and support that they need to get through a difficult time. And so where we know that we have people that are in those, many people in our community that are in those very circumstances, we have to take that into account when we think about what are we doing and why are we doing it? In what ways do we have the ability to improve a situation for people that helps them to be successful, and take unnecessary burdens off of the table. And so we have teachers who are teaching from home with multiple children, who are also engaging in learning at the schools that they are homeschooling now from. We have families here that have both parents who are out in essential jobs that are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to provide support to their kids while they're home now, required to engage in learning in this different model. And so, these circumstances warrant reconsideration of some of our policies and practices. And so we've spent quite some time talking about this. We've talked about all kinds of different things. We've talked about, to the point of a parent earlier, what if we gave options? And then we tried to think about, well, how would you actually do that in practice? And, the more we talked about it, the more complex things became, and the more overwhelming it became to try to explain what the framework and matrix would be about how we decide, if students, if we gave them a choice, pass, fail, or grades, in practice, trying to implement a system that's that flexible at a time where things are changing so quickly, it just didn't make any practical sense. And so we've, engaged in, conversations about this. We've had discussions with the teachers union. We've bantered around a lot of different ideas. And in the end, the recommendation before you tonight is what we felt was the best option for us here in Newmarket, given all of the factors that weigh into, this kind of a decision. So with that, I'll have the high school administration review with you what the alternative grading system would be for the fourth quarter here at the junior senior high school, and then at the elementary school we'll do the same for the trimester grading, this third quarter trimester grading. So I'll just turn it over to, I guess, the junior senior high school first, since it's listed first here.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hey, Sean.
Hey, so I think I know that you saw the proposal that we drafted up to you. I believe it's in your board packet. I agree with everything that Susan said. One of our chief concerns for myself and the admin and several teachers is that we're in an environment that is not obviously in the bricks and mortar learning situation. And at times, that is handicapping some of our students. And that's in terms of a lot of our students get that extra one-on-one help and extra one-on-one attention in class from our teachers and have the ability to stay after school and get that extra help. That's kind of been pulled out from their feet. A student that maybe struggled to get that B in a physics class and worked hard with Mrs. Kiefaber now doesn't have that, in class support anymore. So he or she, who used to be a B student, is now could be a C or D student. So that was one of our concerns about this as well. The other issue is that at the high school, we know of several situations where there are families that have, mom and dad are essential workers. The high schooler is basically playing the role of educator during the day and, parent during the day during this situation. So that's kind of also, weighed heavily on this decision. This proposal we didn't take lightly. We realized that it's a significant change. I wouldn't propose anything that I thought would be detrimental to where our students are going to end up after all this has calmed down. The idea is that our third quarter grades are being posted tomorrow. And the idea going into this is that we would freeze student grades at the end of third quarter. We would then go to a pass-fail model. That third quarter grade would be the grade that the student earns for the second half of the school year in the various courses. I know there was a concern that what if a student failed third quarter and they do better fourth quarter? I think in situations like that, obviously we want students to pass and not be held back, so to speak, by the proposal that we have in front of you. So, in those circumstances, we can make that change to reflect that they have the concepts that they need to move on. GPA is a big thing at the high school. I realize that, and this is a shift to more what are we learning and getting out of our courses and the coursework that the kids are taking, and shifting away from that GPA model for a quarter. The other things to think about too is that this quarter we are looking at the essential skills in each of the classes. We've pared down what exposures the kids are having, which we have to do, because given the time frame and given the situation that we're in, that had to be done. The quarter is also going to be shorter than typical as well, because, you know, even June 10th, you're still looking for, you know, every class except for the senior class. You're looking at another 2 weeks of school that we are no longer holding. You know, it's kind of funny because not funny, but I bounced this off my sister, and you may say, well, why did you bounce this off your sister? My sister is actually in college admissions. She does that for Smith College. So I said, you know, what are you guys doing? Because this is, you know, a unique situation. And, you know, she shared with me that this is kind of the same situation they have when they get a homeschooler who is enrolling to some of the top schools. Homeschoolers don't have GPAs. They're looking at what the experiences that the kids are having and what they have done to prove their knowledge in the fields that they want to go into. So, I mean, all universities are dealing with this. All schools are dealing with this. Some schools in the area are proposing pass-fail models. Others are not. I've heard of some schools saying that maybe the seniors only have to take the classes that they need to make sure they get the credit. And they would have a withdrawal on classes that were more of elective. So there's a lot of things going back and forth here. This would not, a pass-fail would not impact the overall GPA because it wouldn't count against kids, nor would it count in favor of kids, because the grades for the year have been frozen at the end of this third quarter. So we would still be able to do top 10 of our senior class. It's my understanding that the top 10 has typically been determined before even the fourth quarter is over, because our seniors graduate at least a week before the end of the quarter. I forget the other questions that were out there as well. Could you shoot them to me? I'm sorry.
I can go through those too. And I just what you mentioned the top 10 thing, and I really hope that things work out, that we're able to do that, you know, that top 10 lunch. I attended that last year, and that was like my favorite time of the school board year, really, just to sit down with those kids and wow, I was pretty impressed. And I got to spend 2 hours with them at lunch, and they were really mature, and I really enjoyed that. So maybe if we can come out of this thing and we can, restaurants are open and all that, we can consider doing that before they're off to their, you know, to their next, whether it's the military or college or whatever their next step in life is. Well, one of the questions is, and Susan, I know you read some of these before the meeting and the public comment, and you may have addressed this one. I was multitasking, but essentially the question, the gist of the question is, you know, well, some kids are doing really well under this remote learning model, and their grades are doing well, and others aren't. I mean, and I think, Susan, you addressed this one, but why not give them the option of either doing a pass-fail or continuing on a grading basis?
Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. I think it could complicate things. I don't know how that would, if we allow a certain contingent of kids to say, oh, we're going to take this as a traditional grade versus a classmate that has circumstances that they feel taking it as a pass-fail. I have to be honest, I haven't seen how that would directly impact class ranking. I know that's something that's always a consideration. So unfortunately, I don't have the distinct answer of how that would impact the overall GPA of students at the end of the year in terms of the junior class. I'm thinking more junior class. Senior class GPAs are pretty much determined at this point in time in terms of the top 10 in class rank. I'm thinking more for the junior class and the underclassmen. I would have to take a look in to see how that would play out in terms of, all right, so Amy takes it for a grade and Gary takes it for pass-fail. Amy gets a 3.5 and Gary gets a pass. How does that impact the overall GPA of both for Amy, does that have an advantage over Gary? So to be honest, I have not researched that.
It depends how well Gary did in the third quarter.
Well, thank you for
Right.
passing. I appreciate you passing me that.
Right.
Sean, Elizabeth,
Yeah.
but what I'm hearing you say is that if the children show up, if they show up to their Google meetings, they turn in the work, that you have lessened the load down for them, that if say they're not doing all that well third quarter, if they might pass because they have been showing up, they have been doing the work, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, so basically what we're saying is the third quarter grades have been posted, Liz, so will be posted tomorrow, I mean. And so that grade that they have for third quarter carries over for the whole semester in this model, if we stick with pass fail. So yeah, if a student is showing up, doing their work, and does well enough to pass for fourth quarter, they're going to get full credit for that semester. So
my struggle, this is the struggle I'm having. So
yep.
Third quarter, the end of third quarter, we were in the middle of a pandemic. Like we went from being in school to remote learning, and everybody's hair was on fire.
Right.
My concern, obviously we lost some kids, obviously we lost some momentum with learning.
Yep.
That probably is reflected in that third quarter. So how do we, that kid who was probably just barely passing now isn't passing, and now he or she's not going to pass for fourth quarter, or she'll just get a passing grade. I guess that's the struggle I'm having with this pass fail.
Right.
Sean, can I make a comment?
Sure, of course, Jen.
So Elizabeth, to kind of go back to what you were saying, we've been in touch with a lot of teachers who were describing kids kind of in that setting that you're talking about, where they were holding it together and getting by, and then this happened, and they've kind of were MIA for a little bit, and the teacher's been reaching out to them. So what we've asked, and now the kid has kind of shown up, got past the initial crisis and is feeling ready to go. So when we've talked to those teachers, they've reached out to myself and Sarah and Sean, and we've exercised the option of having those students get an incomplete for third quarter right now, allowing them to, now that they're kind of back in the groove, finish up what they missed from quarter three to earn, improve their grade back to passing or better, and then move forward into the pass fail option for quarter four.
Okay. Thank you.
I think
that's good information.
I'm sorry, so hard to not speak over people. One of the things that when we were having the conversations about the pass fail for quarter four, that I come back to always is the idea of equity for all students. And we have some students who, like Sean described, they struggle when they're in a classroom with their teacher and a special educator and a paraprofessional all there to support them. And now they might be at home in a totally unsupported setting. Unfortunately, some of our students have very difficult situations at home that we don't always know all the details of, or we do know the details of, which is sometimes even more difficult. And in my opinion, and during this time, I've been doing a lot of reading online. Educators across the country are all sort of debating this issue. And a lot of folks feel that when you're grading right now, a lot of what we're grading during a global crisis is related to who has the more stable home lives, who have parents that are at home, who isn't food insecure right now because mom and dad are out of work. And that sometimes, the playing field, when they're in school, we do the very best we can to level the playing field for all kids. But when they're not coming to see us every day, we lose the ability to do that. And in some ways, I think that is unequitable for some kids. I think the majority of kids benefit from the pass fail option. I know there are kids who, like Amy described, whose parents say their student is having the best grades they've ever had. But I think the vast majority of kids are probably finding this more difficult than when they're in school. So that's just kind of something we were discussing, and I just wanted to bring that to the conversation.
The struggle, and here's the other struggle I had. You have to remember we're in the middle of a pandemic, and so when I think, oh, how's this going to impact the kids? Well, everything's impacting the kids, impacting our teachers, impacting our lives. And if this is one less stress off of families and students, it's not perfect. But I mean, I struggled with it, but then I have to remember we're in a pandemic. We are lucky that right now it hasn't impacted us, but we are in Rockingham County. We have the largest amount of infected people, and we're going to see this bubble burst. And if it does impact our community, this would be one less stress for a teacher, a student, a parent, if they had to take care of a family member, or just so much could happen, and we have to plan ahead. So I understand why this is necessary. I don't love it, but I do agree it's necessary just to take the stress off of people.
That's exactly what we were thinking, Elizabeth. We're in an unprecedented situation. None of us have ever had to deal with this. I don't think there's anyone here that was here for 1918 Spanish flu. So, this is something none of us have experienced. And I think it's exactly that. We're hearing from parents who, the parents are crying when they call us because they're so overwhelmed trying to help their students. And to take that stressor off of them when there's already so many other stressors, I think is key. In fact, some states have said that the educators are not allowed to penalize students for remote learning because of it being an issue of equity, where not all students have equal access to resources or supports, specifically students with disabilities who are not getting their full services that they would normally get. So New Hampshire didn't take that option. We chose to continue with holding kids accountable for grades. So that's the format that we have to abide by. But there is a lot of different thinking on it. And the pass-fail really does take that pressure off of kids and families.
This is Sarah. Just to echo what Jen said, and I don't think I'll say it as gracefully as she said it. I've been hearing from a lot of students that are very, very stressed out about, what if I fail? What if this happens? What if this happens? Will I be held back? Talk to a lot of parents that feel the same way. And our conversations usually lead to, what do you need emotionally? What do you need financially? What do you need for food? Those are the conversations that we're having. And I think that the commissioner and the governor have said, it's up to the local school district to decide how we're best going to support our students. And I think, Elizabeth, you said it, this is how we can support them. It's the best way we can. There's no option for it. We have to support the kids that their parents are nurses or their parents are emergency workers, and they're alone at home. And it's just, like Jen said, it's just not equitable.
Yeah, we forget that because most of us are home, but then there are the parents who aren't home. There are the children that are taking care of their younger siblings, helping their younger siblings with their remote learning. We're lucky.
It's really sorry to interrupt. It's really highlighting the divide between the haves and the have-nots in terms of resources, in terms of equitability. It's just not there.
This is Gary.
And that's access to healthcare is the same way. I mean, you're all seeing it on the news.
Yeah, sorry to jump in. This is Gary. Two things. One, it's not specifically germane to this conversation directly, but you both brought it up, and I guess I'm really concerned with what we're doing to accommodate these kids or these people who don't get the services that they'll normally get. And then before you answer that, I just wanted to briefly say we don't get an opportunity to see you guys personally. Just Erica, Christina, Sarah, Deb, Sean, Jen, just thank you guys so much for all you've been doing throughout this whole crazy situation. We thank everybody each week, but it's good to be able to thank you guys personally.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is Sarah. I can speak a little bit, and I'm sure that Christina and Erica can also speak to it. When we have a student who's disengaged, the process usually is that the team would let us know, and we would call out to the family, try to make contact, and then, for lack of a better word, sort of triage them in terms of, do they need counseling? Do they need technical support? What is it that is causing the disruption in their learning. So for special education, what the case managers are doing is they're holding online sessions. They're going to their classes with them. They're providing them with notes. They're providing them with help sessions. A number of our paraprofessionals are meeting with kids on Google and supporting them in any way that they can. I mean, we're kind of pulling out all the stops so that we can best meet the kids where they need to be. And our teachers are doing a fantastic job. They're working around the clock answering kids' emails and kids' questions every time they come in, just to keep them engaged in learning.
Our counseling staff is also doing Google Meet counseling sessions one-on-one with kids who receive counseling as part of their IEP services. So that's going on. They're making virtual appointments with kids and doing, face-to-face through Google counseling. So that's part of how we're also still supporting kids and providing services.
But I would add, it's awesome, all the services that we're providing online and all the opportunities we're offering the kids to succeed. But again, it does not take the rule. I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. Everyone knows that isn't the same as in a face-to-face classroom setting where you have that personal contact. And we're making all the teachers and all the case managers and paraprofessionals are involved. I mean, kudos to them, but it's still lacks the validity of what is truly takes place every day within the confines of the building.
Hey, Sean, first of all, really thanks to everybody for answering these questions or answering all these questions on the spot. And I totally understand if you don't have an answer or need more time. And I gather this probably won't, I'm sure folks, especially parents, will have questions as we go on. There are a few more that we received. I just thought I would get those out there.
Sure.
And try to answer. Like one question was in this nature. Say you had like a junior, right? And at the high school, and he or she didn't get the best grade they wanted to for that third quarter, and we're really hoping that they could rally in that fourth quarter and bring their grade up, because that junior year, as we know, can be very important for college applications. What's the thought on that type of scenario?
I can Sean, sorry. We briefly talked about that this morning, and I don't know that we're necessarily prepared to have a concrete televised answer to that. But I think what our main goal is to support kids in being engaged and learning and having a that reflects what they're learning, but also not to penalize kids for things that were out of their control. So we alluded a little bit to a fact that this morning about if it's to the student's benefit, then we could look at those individually and manage that individually and give the kids credit if that's what they need. It's okay.
This is Jen. I think it's also important to realize that, if a student is a junior and they're applying to college next year, as Sean alluded to and Dr. Givens from the webinar today, colleges are going to know if a student who's a current junior had not the best second semester of their junior year. They know what happened, right? It's not going to be a mystery as to why the student's performance may have dipped off, because juniors across the country, across the world, are dealing with this disruption. So I think, as they look at the full profile of the student, they will probably be more understanding of a dip this specific semester compared to the past because of, what's going on.
Right. Okay.
Mike, I just got an email saying that some of the viewers can't hear people. So I don't know. Hold on a minute. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear everybody very clearly.
Well, people at home can't hear everyone. So I'm just bringing that to your attention.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a channel 13 issue. One of the other questions for the panel is that we got was that and I think this may have been answered, or it was or a question that was close to it. But if a student, here's the question: if a student has a failing grade at the end of the third quarter, but did the work that they were asked to do in the fourth quarter under this model, would they be given a passing grade for the semester?
Again, I would always work for the benefit of the student. That's a question we hadn't pondered, to be honest, but I would say that I would have wanted that student to be recognized for the work and not penalize them for a rough start in third quarter when we're all sitting on line. Part of this is that for students to get full semester credit, they must pass fourth quarter.
Gotcha. The next question was this, and it may have been addressed again already in part, but and I think the answer is that it's being worked on right now, and it goes to the teachers have a plan in place as to how the pass-fail grades will be calculated. And I think, Susan, you may have addressed that the goal is to have that in place before we leave for April break.
I can speak to that. Oh, am I on mute? No, I'm not on mute. What we're working on is there's documents that outline the remote curriculum plans for the elementary school and the junior senior high school. At the junior senior high school, the department heads right now are rolling through those and identifying the most important things that kids are going to come away from their classes with so that they'll be prepared for their next class. So we're identifying those. We're working through that. I just want to make sure that we have eyes on it from all the different stakeholders within the building before we roll those out to the public. In terms of calculating grades, the teachers would be calculating the grades just as they normally do, and then so it would be a numerical grade, and then they just convert it to a pass or a fail at the end of the quarter.
Okay, I gather the more information will follow as to precisely how it'll work. I mean, there'll probably be an email to parents, I imagine, once it's all arrived at.
Correct.
I would assume so.
Yep.
One of the things that we, it will be sent out. Obviously, once we have clear direction on where we're headed here.
And just great. I really feel like this moment in our history is a time where we can take a step back and we're forced to look at the entire child. And I think that the administrative team at both schools has really tried to look at the entire child, and they're more than just a grade for a quarter in 2020. And I think I would implore you to consider this as something that you're going to adopt, because it gives us an opportunity to really support all kids all across the board.
Sarah, speaking to that point, one thing that I noticed throughout this whole conversation is a benefit that we have with having such a small district. Administrators know the kids, the teachers know the kids, and everything that Sean has said and you have said and Jen have said has been that you guys are going to look at what's going to benefit each individual student to help them do and be their best within this new paradigm. And I just appreciate that concept, because I think it's one of the things that makes us special as a district. I think it's being heightened as you guys have said, it's the challenges that people face are more evident now than they may have ever been. And I think that, I appreciate the input that everyone has and the care that you're taking for the students.
Thank you. I think it's also a great
If I could say one,
move towards personalized learning for students, which is something that we would strive for as a district, I would think. Sorry, Jen, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I think one more thing to kind of circle way back to the beginning of the conversation, where Amy had brought up about letting families choose. Besides the fact that would be asking teachers to then be running 2 grading systems simultaneously, I would also worry about a student who is in a good place right now, chooses the letter grade, and then a month from now, God forbid, someone in their family becomes ill, or there's a situation that impacts them. And we wouldn't want kids bouncing back and forth between doing I was going to do the letter grade, now I'm going to do the pass fail, or I was going to do the pass fail, now I'm going to do the letter grade. I think none of us can predict what is going to happen. And if a student or a family was to make a choice and then they faced an unfortunate circumstance, we wouldn't want to see that negatively impact the student.
Hey, Mike, I have a question. If children are taking AP classes, are they still going to be able to do a pass fail for an AP class where they get college credit?
I mean, I think the college credit, if I recall, depends upon your performance. First of all, if college is accepted, it depends on you need to get a 4 or a 5
Right, on the test.
Yeah, for the college to accept.
And at this time, Amy and Jen, I think I might have cut you off, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah or Jen, but I believe at this time they're kind of in review mode for the upcoming AP test that's going to be given, because it's not going to be multiple choice. It's going to be more open-ended.
Right.
So I think at this time they've pretty much covered the bulk of what they do for AP, given where we're at. So I think it's more of review mode right now. But they will be taking, my understanding, they will be taking the test, but it's an open-ended test. It's not the multiple choice as they've had in the past.
Right, because they'll be doing it remotely from home. So the College Board has changed the format of the test. They're not doing the multiple choice part so that kids can't just look up the answers, right? They'll have to be writing more. So the whole format of it is different this year because of the circumstances.
One question we got, and I read it at the beginning in the public comment, is essentially under a pass-fail model, kids who were formerly sort of motivated to sort of go that extra mile and do the extra work, or may have been motivated by grades, with that not being there, do you anticipate a sort of a lack of motivation to really dig in?
You know, overall, I think if a student is really driven to better themselves and learn the material, I don't think a pass fail is going to make a difference. I'm sure that was something that we discussed. Will kids let up on the gas a little bit? They may, but also given what families are dealing with and students are dealing with, for the overall health and well-being, it may be a good thing they take the foot off the gas a little. I don't want to take it off completely, obviously, but you know, I think those students that are really driven to learn material, they need to realize that they need to know the material, the juniors right now, because next year they're going to go into a class that is going to expect them to know what we have drafted as those essential skills as they come in for next fall. That's kind of alluding to what Gary, like where we're at the end of the year. So kids will know what they need, what will be covered in these classes. And, you know, if they decide all of a sudden they're not vested because now they're not working for GPA, which I suppose that's a possibility. They're also running the risk of when they come back in the fall and start the next level math class or what have you, that their skill set is going to be not where it should be.
I think I've covered all the sort of questions that were submitted. I don't know if the board has any other thoughts or questions. See a lot of heads shaking no. Is there any other input from the panel?
This is Amy. I guess I mean, I agree with that. We do need to go to pass fail, but I do have concerns, you know, having a junior and at a very high level and his concerns about going to pass fail. He, you know, he's going to kill me for saying this during the meeting, but he doesn't want to go to pass fail. He was hoping to get a higher grade next semester, fourth term. I call them semesters. So I was doing a lot of research today, and a lot of schools, it was like 50-50. Some schools in the United States are choosing just to go to all pass fail. Some schools are choosing the option where some can pass fail. And like we talked about earlier, where Sean touched on, you know, Gary took pass fail, Amy didn't. So some schools are doing that option, and I would like to consider that if possible. I know Jen just said it would be hard for teachers to do grading at the end of the year, but if other schools are doing it, then I would like to see if we could do it. So that's where I stand on that. I just wondered about that.
Yeah, and I understand that, but at the same token, it's a shorter quarter. Again, we're only really narrowing into the essential elements that we can fit in this setting and time frame. I mean, one of the things that I know some other districts have looked at is pass with distinction, pass, incomplete, and fail for the quarter too. So that would be perhaps a midway, meeting you midway, I guess, in terms of that. I just think that again, it's the concern is I think Jen said it very well, is that if a student decides to, hey, I'm going to take it as a normal GPA-driven class, and something goes south in their family 3 weeks from now, they're stuck in that GPA mode.
Right, but I think that's the choice of the parent and the student. You know, I know my son personally, and I know a lot of my friends' children have worked so hard these last 3 years, and I just think it's their choice. You know, like this is their biggest year, and I just would hate to see that. How would it affect the teachers' grading if they did this? If we had the choice, could anyone answer that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we are looking at this, all angles of this. So it as you can see from this discussion and conversation, it's a very complicated set of challenges that we're trying to balance. And one of the things that is really important as we consider what we do is to make sure that what we're doing is clear and executable. And so as you go into these various machinations of possibilities, you add a level of complexity to a very fluid and unsettled situation. And so what benefits one group has negative implications for another group. And what we have spent a lot of time on is talking about what is the most fair and equitable way to approach this, given the set of circumstances we're faced with right now. What happens in this fourth quarter is not going to be in any way, shape, or form the same educational program that we could offer in school. And so when you're adding grading to that, where is the fidelity in the grade? If last year's group that passed this course had to meet all of the requirements of the course in order to get that grade, but this group is not going to, because it's not possible, because we've shortened the school year and we've gone to a model of education that does not provide all of the support services that they would normally receive, even the high flyers, then it begs the question of what does it mean if you are actually giving a grade in the fourth quarter? And what is the purpose of the grading? And what's really important in the paradigm shift here is away from grading and shifting towards learning. And what I've asked our faculty to do is to focus on learning. What is the essential learning that we want students to be able to know and do when they exit this year? And trying to grade that when those expectations are going to be different than in the normal circumstance just does not make a lot of sense for us. And so that's why we have made this recommendation at the junior senior high to go to pass fail in the fourth quarter. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that what we're doing is not pass fail for the semester. Many schools are going to pass fail for the semester, which would have implications for the GPA. What we're suggesting is that we go to pass fail only for the fourth quarter, and that we would provide kids with as much support as we can to make sure that they pass that finish line this year.
Susan,
and we do it in a way where we don't lose students, because what's going to be increasingly more difficult as we approach this fourth quarter and this third trimester is keeping kids engaged.
Susan, can I just check with a question real quick? I understand your point about grading and it's going to be difficult, but in order to do pass fail, won't there have to be some sort of grading model? I guess I'm trying to understand how. I'm sure it'll be simplified.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're establishing what we're going to expect students to know and be able to do by the time they leave, given the circumstances we're in right now.
Okay.
So we're going to focus on power standards and competencies that are reasonable and essential for the kids to get in order to be able to move into next year with good foundational skills.
So is that
to
more
launch
like
for next year?
So then is that more like the model of masters knows progress towards sort of non-numeric grading? Would it be a similar sort of?
We're saying if the kids are able to demonstrate that they have acquired the knowledge and skills that we're going to establish, that they wouldn't get a passing grade, and there's no gradation in that.
I think Gary was referring to competency based.
Yeah, I guess I understand the concept. It's just how do you determine whether they've acquired it without some sort of, and I think you're right, Mike. I think I was just alluding to the competency based.
So I think it would be, Gary, I think it would be more of an assessment of the students versus the idea of a traditional grade is like what you're talking about, where you assess their level of proficiency versus they got a 95 or they got a 75.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So, Amy, to your point, I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm also have a student in the as a junior in the over caffeinated classes, I like to say. They've worked hard, but I think ultimately I think for grading, and again, it's going to, as folks have said earlier, that if there are particular circumstances, they'll work with students. But for those folks who've really driven, I mean, it's already reflected, and it's just sort of freezing it for now, and whatever grade they have for the third quarter, presuming that they pass the fourth quarter, will be their grade for that semester and will be incorporated in the GPA. And I totally get the notion that, geez, boy, I would have liked that one more time at bat in the fourth quarter to try to really crank and raise my grade. I get it. And
right. I get it too, but I guess no one really answered my question when I asked earlier about the grading with the teachers. How much, is it possible to do the two gradings if it were to happen, if they had the option?
Because nobody can guess what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Do we really want to put that out there and put that stress on teachers and students?
Well, no, I don't.
Easy way to take care of the
I just
stress.
want to answer to my question.
We're not going to do that. That we're going to allow the teachers to determine what the pass fail is.
I just wanted to answer to that question. That's all.
We're trying to take the stress away.
I think
that's the question.
Yeah, but no one answered my question, so that's what I'm getting at. No,
Amy?
you didn't.
Amy, I can give you an answer. I think yes, obviously it's possible. They would just have to be keeping track of which students were pass fail, which students were letter grade, and they'd, whereas they'd be giving feedback and suggestions for improvement to the students who are on the pass fail option, they would have to do that, and then additionally assign numerical grades to the students who are doing the letter option. So of course it can physically be done. We would just be asking the teachers to do additional work and sort of work within two sort of paradigms at the same time. So yes, it can be done. It would just be asking the teachers to do sort of not, I don't want to say twice the work, but additional work from what they're already doing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts? I'm just getting back to the agenda. Bear with me for a second.
So do we want to move away from junior, senior high school and go to elementary now?
Yes.
Okay, then we will turn the floor over to the elementary school administration.
Okay, all right, this is Debbie. I'll just briefly review what we've been looking at for the last couple of weeks. I know in the packet, we had suggested a few different ways of looking at trimester 3. As you all know, we're on trimesters rather than terms and semesters. So we are fortunate that we did get the end of our second trimester, all those grades in, and the parent portal was opened last week, a little before that. And we are freezing those grades as is and moving to a different type of model, similar to the pass-fail. But as Christina and I have been talking with all of our grade level teams, our unified arts team and special ed team, each week we meet regularly with each team. And we've been talking about different scenarios. And I think the most equitable and the one that recognizes the efforts that families, students, and have been putting into this remote learning situation, but yet doesn't overly stress families. Our children, of course, are a lot younger. Many of them cannot do independent learning, and many of the families are still working, or if they're at home, are tending to many other issues. So it does make it for a difficult situation for many of our people out there. And we're looking to do a pass-fail also. And we feel that we would like to also put a narrative piece in, a brief narrative of how the remote learning went with each child, so that we get a little sense of what they were able to accomplish besides just the pass-fail. Because as Dr. Givens stated, we are looking at power standards, looking at what we really want each child to come out of the situation knowing. And we're looking primarily at language arts and mathematics with pre-K through 2. And then we will be looking at a couple of things for social studies and science in the grades 3 through 5. So we will be making comments on that. And then of course it will state promoted to the next grade, if that is indeed the case, which it should be in most cases. And I do want to say that our teachers are keeping really close tabs on a lot of the students. And we have been fortunate to really make contact with most of the families. And they're doing a remarkable job through Google Classroom. And I think we've been hearing some really good things. But there are a lot of different types of situations that our students are dealing with. And we do have to be very cognizant of that. And I think to maintain it through the next really probably 6 weeks or so, will be a little bit of a struggle for some, and will be needing to be very aware of the supports and things that they need. So, any questions at all?
Debbie, this is Gary Swanson. I was just wondering, have you looked in the 6th grade team at all regarding placements for the 5th grade kids next year? Or is that something you guys will handle more in the fall?
We'll be looking at placement in general during the last few days of that the teachers are here. That's our plan at the elementary school, and 5th going to 6th usually do similar, and we're in communication with the 6th grade team when we're doing that. And if it looks like we may have to be doing that remotely, but we have already begun to talk about that situation and how we would be able to do placement remotely.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. So we have a vote on this under action items, and I suggest we keep it there. And Susan, you had a hiring update.
Mike, I can do that when we get down to nominations and just do all those together.
Okay. So let's go on to switching gears entirely. Let's go on to approval of the minutes for the April 8th, 2020 public minutes. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Elizabeth McKinney. Oh, Gary got it.
Gary Swanson, so moved.
Elizabeth McKinney, second.
And the only change that I would make that I noticed is that we should do this going forward is that the meeting minutes should reflect that we all appeared by a roll call vote at the beginning of the minutes, at the beginning of the meeting, and that no one was present with us. With that, were there any other changes or edits?
Do you want those in this?
Yeah, I would seek an amendment to the motion to add that.
So moved.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you second?
Yes.
So amended. Okay. Any other points we should raise on the minutes? If none, all those in favor by roll call vote: Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, the motion's approved unanimously. Next up, we have the manifest. And you see if I can scroll down.
I have those numbers if you want, Mike.
That'd be great, Gary. Can you?
Don't have the date of the manifest, however.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I just need the date of the manifest. Unfortunately. You don't have the date on that? Make a motion, we accept the manifest for payroll and AP for 4/17/2020, totaling $556,355.52.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Amy Tilton.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call vote: Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, the manifests are approved unanimously. Okay, so we're right back at it. We're at the pass-fail grading approval. It's our school board policy LKA, I believe. And that's in our materials as well. We had quite a bit of discussion about this. It's
Mike,
yeah.
this is Amy. I would move that we table this discussion because I don't feel I'm ready to vote on it. I'd like more discussion on it.
Others' thoughts?
Does that require?
A second, requires a second.
It does. I'll second it so we can discuss.
My only concern is if we do table it, then that delay, and we're already in the fourth quarter, it would be difficult to determine moving forward what the grading process is going to be, as opposed to having it pretty much at the beginning of the quarter. That would be my concern.
I guess my
That
only
was my concern as well.
And that's my concern. And I mean, I want to. We can certainly talk about it more here this evening as well. If people still have more thoughts on it, but we have a motion out there. We have a second in terms of tabling the issue. Are there any other thoughts on tabling?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Amy, I feel like we've had a fairly robust conversation. I understand your apprehension. Is there specific items that you're looking for?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think that there should be an option that each student can choose, pass, fail, or a grade letter. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I think we need the majority of the kids, whether they're doing bad or good, they would choose a pass-fail system. But there are some children in the system in our district that wouldn't choose it. And you know why? It seems like they're getting, penalized for all the hard work they've done over the years. So that's how I look at it. And it's.
Yeah, I just don't know if we can put that on the teachers. That's my concern, to be honest with you, in addition to the other concerns.
And again, let's deal with this, because we can certainly talk. We have a motion on the floor, and Gary seconded it. This is just a motion to table. This doesn't end the discussion on the issue itself. So with that motion, let's do a roll call vote. If there's is there any other comment on this particular motion?
No.
Okay, Mike Kennison, nay. No.
Elizabeth McKinney, nay.
Kim Shelton, nay.
Gary Swanson, no.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, so we can certainly continue this discussion on this pass-fail grading thing. I would just say, again, there's points to be made on both sides, and I get it, and I get entirely, Amy, what you're saying, but I also get the equity part that the panel has really talked about here. And if you have, so sort of a student pulling ahead, and that's great if they're really extra motivated and want to pull ahead, they can still do that, of course, under a pass-fail system. But if they're simply pursuing a grade, well, then doesn't that sort of disadvantage other kids who don't choose to do that, and it goes into class rankings and all of that stuff. So I mean, there's no easy answer for it. I get where folks are coming from, but I think as a school board member, again, as a layperson and as someone who's not considered this as in depth as the administrative panel that's with us tonight, by study and on the ground discussion and research and knowing the peculiarities of our district, I would hesitate to supplant their judgment with my own on the merits of this issue. That's just sort of the way I look at it.
Well, I just wonder why, all the readings I've done today, and so many schools have chosen to do both, and that they can do it in their bigger districts than us. In some schools, like I said, are just strictly doing the pass fail. So I just wonder why some schools can do it and
I don't think it's a matter, Amy, I don't know if it's a matter that we couldn't do it. I just think it's a matter of what are we asking the teachers to possibly have to deal with. And then in addition to that, are kids going to be flip-flopping for whatever reason? Probably not a lot, but some might.
Right.
And I just don't know if we can put that on teachers. And the fact that Principal Pine said that we are giving kids the opportunity to, kind of return or complete any third quarter work to make sure that grades up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how we can ask the teachers to do that, given what we're in and they've been going through.
Any other comment? In our packet of materials is a COVID-19 remote learning alternative grade system recommendation, which is what we've been talking about here tonight. I think this is timely, or this requires a timely action. So therefore, I would seek a motion to approve that alternative grading system as written.
So moved.
Elizabeth McKinney made the motion.
Gary Swanson, second.
Is there any further discussion?
It's not ideal, and I totally, I do understand when you're looking at it from a parent point of view, and Amy, Mike will tell you that this was a very hard discussion that I've had. But what I've learned today is it's not just about certain kids. It's about all the kids. It's about the whole student body. It's about our community and keeping all our community safe. And I keep going, I have to remind myself, this is a global pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen the next 2 weeks. And if this is one less stress on families, teachers, and our community, it's not ideal. The whole world's going through it. I think we just have to do it and trust the process.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying basically, but I'm just saying that we should give the option, and that's all I'm saying. But I agree with everything else. I understand the situation isn't ideal, and I feel bad for some kids that are having struggles. My kids are struggling too at home. It's unstructured. They can't talk to the teachers like they want to. So I get it, but I'm just saying, just the option. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
Any other comment before we vote? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, no.
Okay, thank you. It was a good discussion, and thank you very much to the panel. I know this couldn't have been an easy decision or recommendation to arrive at, and I know that you've it's probably occupied your thoughts, and we really appreciate it, again, all the work and analysis you put into it. So let me see here. We are Susan, you were going to give a hiring update and or nominations. Or actually, forget that, I'm at the wrong part. There were 2 resignations, and those are in our packet.
Yes.
And let me scroll down to those. Yeah, 2 resignations. And both, I believe, submitted letters to us, or letters to Dr. Givens, which are in the packet. Victoria Hanson, our 3rd grade teacher. And the other one is from Ryan Lavaseur at the high school. And as we always do these, I just want to thank folks for their service to the district. So, on behalf of the board, and wish them the best in their future. We typically make a motion to accept resignations, and I'll entertain one.
Kim Shelton, I move that we accept the 2 nominations listed in our packet.
2 resignations.
Yes, resignation. Sorry about that. I amend.
Elizabeth McKinney, I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion or comment?
This isn't necessarily specific to these resignations, obviously, but I was wondering, what's the board policy on exit interviews? I think it might be helpful if the board was able to interview people on their way out and kind of get their feel for where things are, given some of the turnover in staff we've had in the history, in past recent history.
It's a fair question, Gary. I don't believe the board has a policy on exit interviews. Now, again, consistent with the roles and whatever of the admin versus school board, maybe the administrative folks have that practice as well, because I think they'd probably like to know. Maybe they can comment on it.
Yes, I do exit interviews on all staff that are leaving. I have since I was appointed last year. These 2 particular individuals are looking to look in a different direction for career satisfaction. So they're both been with the school district for a few years, coming into the profession, and both are looking to shift gears and look for opportunities in other areas that they have passion and interest in. So they're moving away from the teaching profession.
I know we had a motion. I forgot if we had a second. Did somebody second that?
Elizabeth McKinney, second.
Okay. Any other comment?
I just had one question about exit interviews. How are they performed? Are they paper conversations?
Face to face.
Any other comment? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, then those resignations are accepted unanimously. Thank you again, and good luck with their future. I think the last item we have is item E. It's the nomination of certified staff. Susan?
Yes, I believe that Patty sent you all 5 nominations and a FY21 staffing changes tracking form. These 5 nominations are included in that summary form. But I'd like to take a minute and just share with you a few details about each candidate that we're moving forward for nomination tonight. So these are in no particular order. They just happen to be in the order that are on my desk. So the first one is Michelle Narrow. Michelle has a bachelor's degree in communications and computer science from Keene State University, an associate's degree in art with a concentration in teacher education. He spent the first 20 years of her career in the private sector as a software developer and a trainer. She spent the last 2 years working in an elementary school in Massachusetts. She teaches 18 classes in her rotation there. And we're very excited about moving forward her candidacy. She has a statement of eligibility for this position, and she would be pursuing an Alt 2 or an Alt 4 process for complete certification here in New Hampshire. So she's eligible. She received her eligibility statement from the Department of the Bureau of Credentialing this morning. So we're very, very excited to have her join our team. We've been looking for somebody that has the kind of coding background that she has, but she also has some experience with web design and some of the other, and so we're very excited to have her join our team next year. So that's Michelle Marrow. Her position, by the way, was one that we had to fill with a long-term sub. It's not somebody that's retiring this year, but it's one of those positions that when I came into the district last year, we did not have the position filled. It was vacated by a retirement the year prior, who was Deborah Boatwright. And so this year we filled the position with a long-term sub. It was with a certified art teacher, but certified art teacher through an emergency waiver, we were able to get her, we were able to hire her this year. But really our desire is to have somebody with a computer science background with the coding experience she has in the private sector. It really marries well with career pathways and opportunities for kids in ways that we can't currently offer. So really excited to have her. Jolene Zhang is who we are nominating for the Mandarin position. For the last number of years, Mark McDonald has been working towards certification in Mandarin. He has a certification in social studies, and he's been teaching in our Mandarin, all of our Mandarin courses. He does not have the certification, and he's decided that he wants to, again, look at other opportunities in other areas. He came to us from the private sector, not in teaching. This is his first foray into teaching, and he's made a decision to seek other employment opportunities in other areas. So, we thank Mark very much for his time with us and for launching the Mandarin program, but we're also very excited to have a native Chinese speaking member of our faculty. She has her bachelor's degree in linguistics from the University of Kansas. She has her master's degree in teaching at the secondary level, Chinese at the secondary level from Brandeis. She'll be graduating with that master's degree in July. She is certified in Massachusetts. There's some reciprocity in certifications between the two states. She will still have to apply here, but if you're licensed in Massachusetts, she has 1 year to be able to complete the paperwork for certification here. But I've talked to her, and she knows that it's my desire to have her apply now so that she'll have full certification when she starts with us. She comes with excellent recommendations from her professors and those that have been working with her through her student teaching experiences, and we're very excited to have her come on board. We thank Sarah Denham, Erin Copeland, and Lynn Healy for being our interview committee, and look forward to having her with us. So that's Jolene. Next, we're moving forward our recommendation for Spanish. This is at the high school level. This is our upper level Spanish courses. Joanna House, who taught here for 4 years, left last year to go to Oyster River. She's taught there for a year, and we're excited to welcome her back to our faculty. She got great references from our staff here, as well as recommendations from Oyster River there. So we're excited to have her return to our staff next year. That position, of course, we all know has been challenging for us. We were unable to secure a Spanish teacher for this year, so we outsourced that to One World. We started this year with a Spanish teacher who then at Thanksgiving informed us that she was not going to be able to return, and so we've been doing the very best we can to provide Spanish instruction at that level all year long. But if you aren't getting out there early, during the regular hiring cycle, it's very, very difficult to hire highly qualified staff. So we're excited to be able to welcome her back. Dana McKenna is who we are putting forth and nominating for the position of speech language pathologist at the elementary school. She would be replacing our retiring speech pathologist, Susan Raymond. Dana came to us this year on a part-time basis to fill a part-time position at the elementary school. So she's been teaching or providing services on a 0.4 basis this year, and she's applied, and we're very pleased to be able to bring her on full-time next year. We'll need to be posting for the part-time position as well as a full-time position at the junior senior high school, which we weren't able to successfully secure a person for. So again, Dana has been a speech pathologist for a long time. Prior to us, she worked in Greenland, from August of 2017 until she took her position here last year. Prior to that, she worked for Newington Public Schools. And so she comes to us with a wealth of experience. And I'd like to thank Christina Cochran, Lori Carmichael, and Erica McNeil for conducting the initial interviews. I really enjoyed meeting each of these candidates, but she's our nomination for that position. And then last is a nomination for Jana Mellon for the position of Business Administrator. Jenna comes to us with a bachelor's degree in business administration. She is a CPA. She has her MBA from Washington State University. She is a certified business administrator in the state of New Hampshire. She's been working at Farmington as the business administrator for the last 2 years. Prior to that, for the 7 years prior to that, she was the assistant business administrator and held several other positions at SAU 72. So we are very excited to bring her on board. She would not be starting, of course, until July 1. And I'd like to thank the search committee led by Patricia Kinsella. Kim Shelton was a member of that committee. Roger Caddy, who is a member of the budget committee. Teresa Marvin and Michelle Martinson, who were in the business department here. And then, of course, the administrative team conducted final interviews. So we are very, very excited to bring forth these 5 candidates for nomination here tonight.
So that sounds, I mean, just on the outset, it sounds really exciting. I mean, it's relatively early, or not early necessarily, but in the hiring process. But they sound like great candidates, and the behind all those nominations are oodles and oodles of work. In terms of posting these things, reviewing resumes, doing interviews, doing reference checks, and all of this was done amidst everything else that we've talked about here tonight in terms of the remote learning on the, just doing that, a month ago, a little more than a month ago. So I really appreciate it. It's really exciting that they sound like highly qualified people, and thanks to everybody who was involved for doing that. Does anybody have any other comments? We will need to take a vote on these nominations. Hearing no other, Gary?
I was just going to make a motion that we accept the 5 certified staff candidates presented to us tonight.
Kim Shelton, second that motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, by roll call vote, Mike Kennison, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We look forward to welcoming everybody aboard, and hopefully we can meet folks face to face soon. So I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. Is there any other business? The board members have anything else?
None.
None. Kim's shaking her head. Okay. Anything else, Susan?
No, just wanted to make note that in your packet you have a document that summarizes the staffing changes for FY21. Some of these are positions that we're appointing now, but will be adjustments to our budget plan for FY21, so they're included in here. And so I just thought I would point that out. As we move forward in the process, the status of these will change. So at the next meeting that we have nominations or any resignations, which I don't anticipate, we would update the status of the search process for each of these and whether contracts have been issued, advertisements have taken place, interviews are ongoing. So as you look down, you can see we are continuing to interview. We posted the position for music and chemistry and special education case manager based on the resignations that you approved tonight. And we'll have another round of postings that will go out as soon as the master schedule is far enough along for us to know what positions we're going to be posting for, what disciplinary areas we'll be looking for staff in. So that work will continue on, and I too, again, want to thank my administrative team for all the work that they have been doing, both throughout this process of hiring, whether it's been on the principal search with all the work that Erica has put in on that, you know, Sean and Debbie and certainly Jen, Sarah, everyone, Christina has put in an awful lot of hours to make sure that we're positioning ourselves in the best way we can for the future, and always looking for what's in the best interest of students, what candidates will complement the faculty that we have now. And, you know, I just am incredibly grateful for all the dedication and effort that has been put forward over the last year, and in particular these last 2 months. So thank you, team. Job well done.
Thank you, Susan. Just a couple of notes. Our next school board meeting is May 7th at 5 p.m. Again, we will do that remotely. And I just would invite the public again, if you have comments, it's on each one of our agendas recently, but we just, you can, if you have public comments you want to submit, please, you know, email Patricia Banfield, our new Susan's new assistant, and/or you know, you can email, and you can call in during our meeting if you want to speak directly. If you want something read in, we can do that as well, like we did tonight. But we appreciate the comments. It was especially helpful tonight, hearing all the different thoughts and questions on the grading issue. I don't have anything else. I'd seek a motion to adjourn.
Mike, just one thing.
Yep.
We have talked about changing the next meeting to be April the 30th in lieu of the May 7th, because I anticipate completing the principal search, and I don't want to delay multiple weeks before making a nomination. So I had.
Yeah, good point. So April 30th, April 30th at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Great. May I seek a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved, Gary Swanson.
I'll second it, Amy Tilton.
Mike Patterson, yes.
Kim Shelton, yes.
Thank you, administrative staff. Gary Swanson, yes.
Amy Tilton, yes.
Elizabeth McKinney, yes.
Great. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.